episode of Stay Human America, we walk the streets of Prescott Valley, Arizona. In this second episode, I'm inviting you inside one proud, patriotic Prescott Valley home, full of flags and Trump memorabilia. Meet my very own MAGA mother, a self-proclaimed Philly girl who spent most of her life on the East Coast. During the pandemic, Kathy moved out west to settle in Trump Valley, Arizona, with her husband, where she would be closer to her two children. One of those children is me, her Democratic daughter. Despite living in Delaware, Kathy has a strong distaste for Biden and an inexplicable devotion to a Donald J. Trump. We're here today to understand her viewpoint. I'm also hoping it will help me cope with very mixed feelings I have about loving her unconditionally as her daughter, while wrestling with the fact that she stands for a maniacal man who believes in mass deportations and ending equal opportunity rights. Relationships between Democratic daughters and MAGA moms are fragile and complex in today's extremely politically charged and polarized environment. Will ours survive? Hi, Mom.
Hi, my beautiful daughter.
And can you explain a little bit about your political party affiliation? I know you mentioned in previous conversations that you consider yourself an independent.
Right. So my whole life, I basically was a registered independent until Bush and McCain ran against each other. And I didn't like Bush. So I registered as a Republican so I could vote against him in the primary.
So you're a registered Republican then?
Yes.
Do you remember the first time you became interested in Trump when he started sparking your interest?
2016.
When he was running in his first term. And what was it about him that struck you?
That he was self-pay. He wasn't being bought by big pharma or industry or the industrial war machine. He was a man about peace and loved this country, was born on Flag Day. He didn't need to run. He was an independently wealthy billionaire. So he truly was doing it for the love of the country.
Him being a businessman, did that have any bearing on your
Oh, absolutely, because everybody else was not all, but in this century, most of your presidents were just politicians. They didn't have backgrounds that justified running the country.
Are you aware of his 7 bankruptcies?
Yes. And that's a business decision. That's how you save your companies.
What about, these are just arguments from the left side, and just interested in your viewpoint on how a billionaire who grew up wealthy and continues to be wealthy, how do you think he's able to understand, empathize, and help the lower middle class if he's never associated or struggled?
Right. Well, you don't have to live in a third world country to help third world people and be empathetic towards them. As a Christian, I've always donated to third world causes. I currently have a third world child that I support. So I don't think you have to be poor to understand the poor. You just have to be empathetic.
So you think Trump is empathetic?
Absolutely. And I think the problem is information is very well controlled today, and people don't know the charity side of him. They don't understand who he supports. He doesn't brag about it. He doesn't write about it. But his butler was interviewed. I don't remember if it was 60 Minutes, but everybody thought this Butler was just going to go off on Trump because at that point he had retired. And he had nothing but praise for him, for the way he was treated over the years, for the charity that Trump did.
Do you remember what charities he's donated to? I can look that up.
No, I mean, you'd have to, I'm sure they looked at his taxes, so that ought to tell him. But the other issue is he would read the newspaper. Years ago, Barbara Walters interviewed him. So you can look that interview up too. That would be interesting. But he puts family first. He was driving back in his limo in New York. His limo broke down, and there was no obvious sign of who was in the limo, but there happened to have been a tow truck driver nearby. So he stopped and offered to help the driver. He fixed the tire. At that point, Trump got out of the car, asked him his information, and paid off his house. He didn't have to do that, but that's what he does. He reads the newspaper. He sees who needs help. He's the only one who reached out to our 13 dead Marine families. The current president never did it. We had 13 dead Marines in Afghanistan for no reason. And he immediately reached out to those families and still reaches out to them.
Yeah, so it seems like there's a sort of pride and admiration. I would even say you're enamored with the president. Like, what makes you so devoted to him?
The fact that he's a fighter, not just for himself, but for the country. Who else would get shot in the head and not give up? And then try to get shot again and not give up?
Try to get shot?
No, he didn't try, but they tried. The deep state tried to get him not once, but twice.
I don't necessarily think somebody's susceptibility of getting shot at equates to them being a good person. It could signify that they're a very radical, figure that is conjuring up a lot of turmoil. I don't condone that type of violence, but I'm like, to me, I don't, from what I know, I don't know anyone that wants to shoot me. Like, so it's almost like, why?
Yeah, but you're not a billionaire.
Why is that a positive attribute of his personality? Anyway.
It's a positive attribute because he didn't give up. Anybody else would have been terrified and just dropped out of the race. But he refuses because he knows the race. He was in it once. They've done everything to him, taken him to court, raided his house.
Well, he's a felon.
No, he's not a convicted felon.
Convicted is the word.
In liberal New York with fake DAs.
Can you explain your viewpoint on the first 100 days of Trump and during this administration? What do you think in general? Is America better, worse, the same?
Definitely better. I realize the controversy over the tariffs, although I'm not a financial major.
We don't have to be a financial major to know that there's everything's more expensive.
Yes, and how expensive were eggs when the last administration was in? And what was the crime rate when the last administration was in? I care more about crime than I care about money because I'd like to live to spend my money.
Do you care more about eggs than crime?
No, I care more about crime than eggs. I can buy a chicken.
Are you saying crime is down?
Yes.
Are there any statistics out there that validate?
Yes, I mean, talk to the governors of the border states.
Okay. Um,
And Colorado.
Aside from him being a business leader, what makes you think that he's a credible leader? His character, his
I like his sense of humor. I think people don't understand him. He's got an amazing sense of humor, and most people that are angry at him don't take the time to read about his whole history. Just recently, the Philadelphia Eagles were welcomed to the White House because of their championship win this year, and he didn't care what their political affiliation was because it was about honoring the number one team, and the team in turn honoring the office of the presidency, not the president, the office.
Okay. So I see you have a Trump tchotchke with you. Obviously, being your daughter, I am around you, and you have some other paraphernalia, Trump paraphernalia at your house. Where do you get it from, and why do you have it?
Well, for my birthday, my niece bought me the 32-ounce Trump tumbler, and it works perfectly in Arizona to stay hydrated.
Do you know where she got it from?
Online.
Can I see it? And then I saw that you had some like Trump earrings and stuff.
Yes.
Looks like it's juggy. So you like to publicly display your pride and your support for the president. I've noticed this time around a lot of people that are against him are speaking out, and there's been more of like a creative surge in how people are expressing themselves on clothing, on what they're wearing, their car. So it's kind of interesting how we've almost commoditized the presidency, because that's not how it's been in history.
No, but during a campaign, there was always buttons and pins and things. But the world is in such turmoil now that people were so disgusted over what happened in the last 4 years that it was like a last hope for him to get in and turn things around.
Did you buy his coin when he came into office?
No.
What other kinds of stuff do you have?
I have earrings, couple t-shirts.
What do your t-shirts say?
Trump train, but that was from the last 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a t-shirt that says Irish Girls for Trump.
You being a woman, and he has female supporters. Does it offend you at all how he treats women?
No more than Clinton.
So 2 wrongs don't make a right.
Exactly. I agree.
But
I don't feel that he, quote, treats women. I think he is a billionaire, and the women have to take responsibility because they willingly went with him.
What about how he addresses women?
In what way? Like, how does he address them? Are you talking about the video from back in 2016?
Mm-hmm. That doesn't bother you?
No, it's locker room talk. I don't like it, but it's not the first time I've heard it. I worked for the airlines with all men for 10 years, so.
Okay. So moving on about the tariffs, I'm not going to say I'm super financially savvy, but they are very not just controversial, but they're causing an uproar in our economy,
Mm-hmm.
and they're also um, with international relations. So when he builds a platform on giving the US a better chance and lowering prices and getting jobs in, I'm not sure how the supporters can still have hope and trust in someone that's actually making it worse.
And he said it would be worse before it got better. I trust in Howard Lutnick, his financial person. He's brilliant. He was from the World Trade Center. um, and I just feel like we're going to have to wait and see. But that being said, I don't think anything could have been worse than having the Democrats stay in office. I don't think we'd have anything right now.
So it's almost kind of like the economy is almost like an addiction, like when you're addicted to alcohol or drugs, it has to get really, really bad. You almost have to hit rock bottom before you can build back up. Is that kind of your thoughts on the economy?
No, but as a senior citizen, I value my Social Security, and I don't appreciate the lies that are being put out about the Social Security when, in fact, it was the left that used a lot of that money to support tens of millions of illegals, putting them up in five-star hotels.
I'm not familiar with that information. If you want to send it over, I would love to read about five-star resorts
in New York City.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. Where did you hear about that?
Well, it's on the news feeds that I watch.
What information sources do you tap into?
I watch news, podcast. I love podcasts, so I do Tucker Carlson, I do Joe Rogan, Roseanne Barr occasionally. I get the Epic Times newspaper delivered once a week. I try to watch a little of CNN as much as I can stomach.
What do you mean by little?
Well, I'll watch it to see what their take is on whatever the event is that happened that day.
To get an opposite
view.
Yeah. Just CNN.
And then PBS.
PBS, that's good. Yeah, I mean, when you were rattling off other sources, the majority of them are, conservative, right, Republican, pro-Trump. So if you're at least tapping into a couple other sources, I think that's really important. That's kind of what I'm trying to do, is figure out how we're living in this society that is so completely different, not just in our views, but the way we speak about facts and information and events. It's so confusing, right, to me. I would also suggest the New York Times, because I know that you're an avid reader, and they obviously can.
But I used to be. I used to get New York Times, Washington Post, all of that, until I saw their attitude change.
Well, and now the only reason I'm asking, or I'm suggesting that, is because they're one of the only news organizations that I know that boil politics down to an individual level. They make it personal. They interview people who have been directly affected by policy. And when you speak about politics in abstract terms, people can't relate. But when you hear about someone losing their job or not being able to get hospital care for their husband who's a vet, those things, because I know you have empathy and compassion, you can't not be touched by that.
Absolutely. I don't want to see anybody lose their job. I don't care who they are. But are you aware of how many people Obama deported? How many people lost their jobs under the Clinton administration? This isn't anything new to the government. It's just
it is in the sense that when we're talking about deportation, they did not have a zero tolerance policy. They had a process and they had checks and balances, and they did not do things against the judicial system's mandates. So
do you know that for a fact? Have you looked at the over 1 million deportations that Obama did? He was known as the deporter in chief.
What I'm trying to explain, the difference is that Trump has a zero tolerance policy, and he's not vetting quote unquote criminals. He's disappearing them. He like no other president in history has done that. They go through a process. He has a point system.
Are you aware of the 300,000 missing children that came through the border? They're disappearing.
Can we stay on subject, please? I'm just trying to tell you the difference, because I understand that Democrats also deport, and we're not arguing the fundamental viewpoint of whether we're all immigrants and whether all of them should be gone. Because if that's your viewpoint, I can see how you're like, well, it doesn't matter that he's disappearing them. They should be gone anyway. But it scares me that a president can use that kind of power to go against the Supreme Court and ship people to El Salvador and disappear them, and now he wants to do that to Americans.
But disappear, in quotes, came from the left. It's a narrative that the left put out there.
It's true.
Nobody has disappeared. They have been taken to prisons from their country of origin. They didn't belong here to begin with. And they were murderers and rapists.
Not all of them were. A few of them. But some of them actually were like citizens here and got scooped up by ICE because they were under this scoring system that ICE uses. Oh, you have a tattoo? Well, that might be a gang affiliation. Let's give you 4 points. They're very arbitrary and subjective, and it's not scientific, and mistakes are being made left and right, and it's people's lives that are at stake.
Right, just like it was people's lives that were at stake on January 6th when people got thrown into prison with
We'll get to that, but I'm also like, it's costing America, not just ruining people's lives, but it's costing us as taxpayers billions of dollars to fund the military and the Border Patrol and all these private prison organizations that are now popping up, and private planes that are shipping, and who knows how much the El Salvadorian president is getting. So all this stuff costs a shit ton of money.
Right, just like it did to bring them in. How do you think they got in here? They didn't just swim across the river. They were flown in.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that information. So
well, it's true. You can look it up. In the dark of night, all over the country, they were flown in. They didn't walk from El Salvador.
Who flew them in?
Obama, Biden, whoever was in at the time. It's a known fact.
What would be their motivation for doing that?
Votes.
Well, there was a lot of Hispanic votes this time for Trump, which
Yes,
I
and that's wonderful.
still can't explain. But
Well, why would you have to explain it? You're looking down on a group of people because they're Hispanic and voted for Trump. That's called freedom of speech. They could vote for whoever they wanted. So why is it wrong for them?
I'm trying to understand why people that are not directly benefiting and suffering.
How were they not benefiting if their jobs were affected?
Their jobs are affected, and just having brown skin is, if you're not white and you're not male, like, you're considered a lesser than in Trump's eyes.
No, you're not. Trump has more minorities working and has had for him than you know. And women in particularly. The top engineer in his country in his company for over 20 years.
He's got his token people.
20 years is not token. He wants quality, not quantity.
Well, he also fires them left and right, and blames them for his wrongdoings, and then rehires them. So, going back to your political affiliation, do you consider yourself MAGA?
Yes.
And what does that term mean to you, beyond the acronym?
It means that when I grew up in America, I had freedom. I had freedom of speech. I had safety. I could walk around 2 o'clock in the morning, not worry about anything happening. And now you can live in the best neighborhood and fear for your life.
But how is that associated with MAGA? Does MAGA mean safety to you?
Yes, absolutely.
And what
safety for me, for my family, my grandchildren.
So you believe the deportations are making America safe again?
Yes, absolutely. It's been proven.
Even though only I'll have to get the statistics for you, but
where are the statistics?
You can look on the United States government website under like the borders and security, and look specifically at the type of crimes immigrants are committing, and there's a very small percentage of them that are actual criminals. I mean, when you say the word criminal, when Trump says it's illegally crossing. When I say criminal, I'm talking about actual crimes committed here, like
theft, murder, rape. Yeah, that's what's been going on. American citizens.
What I'm telling you is there's a very small, like 3%, that are actual.
Are you familiar with Friend Day Aragua? They took over 3 apartment buildings. I
am familiar with that.
And you think that's okay? And the government did nothing about it?
Why is that 3% not shocking to you? That we're spending billions of dollars and only 3% are immigrants. That means the rest of our criminals are here. And that if we really want to clean up crime, we have to look at crime from a holistic perspective and not just an immigrant perspective.
Well, when you have people being murdered and let go, what do you do with that? Even when they catch them, they don't keep them. How is that okay? You have no choice but to deport them. The system doesn't work. They wouldn't let it work.
So you agree with honing in on immigrants versus honing in on the criminal system itself?
No one has a right to commit a crime, whether they're legal or illegal.
So you agree with it? That's a good strategy. To hone in on immigrants, the 97% that do not commit heinous crimes, and spend billions of dollars on them, catching them, deporting them. versus a holistic viewpoint.
It's not just crime. It's jobs. It's medical. There's hospitals shutting down because they've gone bankrupt. Because they don't contribute, they take.
Okay, so you also think that they are stealing our jobs at our healthcare?
Not stealing healthcare jobs. They're stealing our healthcare and not paying for it. Us, the taxpayer, is paying for it.
Do you know how many Americans are on welfare?
Mm-hmm. Yes, they're Americans, and I don't like that either. But I certainly don't want to import 20 million more and break the country and break the system. I work in healthcare. I've seen it.
I would just look a little bit deeper and macro level, and perhaps the immigration is a distraction, and an easy solution to a complex problem. So when Trump was in his first term, and actually, like, more specifically his last term, I was wondering if you attended any of his rallies in person.
Yes.
And what they were like for you.
In Pennsylvania.
When you were living back east?
Yes. And
where in Pennsylvania?
Aston.
And that was during his first?
2016, yeah.
And what was that like?
It was awesome. I met the Secret Service agent that had protected Hillary Clinton and had written a book. I saw the way he was protected then versus when he ran in 2024. They had snipers on the roof. They had a ton of security checking bags. And I saw how they deliberately let that go in 2024.
What was the atmosphere like? How many people were there? Did you go with friends, family?
Family, sister, brother-in-law, niece. It was very happy.
Because I would say all of our family, except for me and one or two others, are pro-Trump. So you have a lot of, you have a lot of support on your side. So was there a sense of kind of like bonding and patriotism? And
yeah, it was patriotic. It wasn't anything negative. It was
there wasn't
happy
any violence or
none at all. They just checked your bags, played music. They had previous speakers before him, and it was a very fun time.
Did you attend any rallies out here in Arizona?
Yes, I went to one at the Finley Center.
Where's that?
In Prescott Valley.
Okay, so yeah, I do know that he had traveled to Prescott Valley back in October. Was that the one that you went to?
No, it was a previous one. Had to be when I first moved here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was that like? Did you go with any of your
No,
friends?
it was just myself and my husband.
Okay.
Yeah. Because obviously that area is more Trump territory, although I think Prescott is somewhat liberal. People tend to think by state what you are.
Yeah.
When I first moved here and was at a gym, a woman overheard me say I was from Delaware and automatically assumed that I was for Biden. And she ran up to me, oh, I'm so excited. Do you want to join us? We love Biden. I said, there's not enough hours in the day to let me tell you about Biden.
Where did you meet her?
In the locker room of my gym.
That's such an interesting topic, to the assumptions people make about your political affiliation, because they're almost always wrong. But I could see her thinking that.
Versus the later rally was more, people were more in fear. They were desperately wanting him to get in because they feared for their future.
Do you remember any of his words that inspired you? Or like just a general sense of what he said to kind of quell the fears?
I think it's just his competence. I mean, a
And
lot of his
confidence.
rallies are repetitive, but he will bring up something that's happened, and he'll say, we're going to make America great again. We're going to make America safe again. We're going to make America free again, to be able to speak, freedom of speech. I mean, that's a very big deal. And when I talk about his comedy, he says, yeah, you know, there's people back there, the fake news, and then they'll turn the cameras off. Like, the media will give him no attention now, versus in 2016, they couldn't get enough of him. And I think that's what helped get him elected, because they thought he was a joke, but the joke was on them, and they learned. So then the only attention they would give him was negative.
He's more of a bully and tries to scare people into submission. But for you, that's more of him calling out wrongdoing.
Yeah, calling out wrongdoing, because you can't make a network cover you. You can't do that. Either they do or they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And they refused, because they saw what happened in 2016.
Going back to what you said, repetitive, I do agree with you on his repetition. And have you noticed how he says certain phrases over and over and over? And he usually does it about 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
That's a psychological strategy,
Right.
to imprint
Message.
those words into people's brains. So
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to point that out. When you mentioned also to me in one of our discussions that you don't listen to Fox News anymore, and I grew up with that blaring in your house. Why did you stop listening to it?
I didn't stop. I only follow, I'll record it and just watch random parts of it, because it's very repetitive. Each show has the exact same thing on.
Yeah.
So if there's a major news story that day, I'll try to see who's got who on.
But you said that it was too left for you.
I said it was turning. And when the icing on the cake for me was when they fired Tucker Carlson. He had a $10 million contract. Why did they do that? Why did they just let him go? Because he refused to give up his freedom as a reporter or TV host. And when they couldn't control him and couldn't control the news.
Were they trying to censor him? Is that why they fired him?
Yes, because he exposed what really happened on January 6th.
How did he expose?
He had video, and they didn't want him to show it, and he did, and he was gone the next day.
I mean, so thank you for bringing up January 6th, because I don't know if you knew this, you probably did, that I've been living in a blissful bubble called California most of my life, and haven't really had any interest or need to be in politics. I've been very apolitical my whole life. So for me, it's digging back into history to see how the world has gotten so messed up. And January 6th, when we talked about it the first a few weeks ago, I started watching YouTube videos, documentaries, and was just so repulsed at how Americans treated our Capitol and our law enforcement and our senators and congressmen, and then Trump inciting violence and not doing anything about it.
He did not incite violence. He is on video saying, please protest peacefully Go back and look at the video. The narrative came
But
out of the left. Those words, incite violence, came from the left.
They came from me. Because I
go back and look at his speech.
Listened to his speech. I did.
And what you didn't hear him say peacefully?
What I saw is him sitting idly by and not calling in enforcement when people were getting their heads banged into the ground. People were being shot. There was.
And are you aware that 3 times Nancy Pelosi was in charge of the security? 3 times Trump begged her to send the National Guard prior to the January 6th. She refused. They wanted this to happen. That's why there were plants. Why would Nancy Pelosi refuse the National Guard and the National Guard admitted it? That's what I'm saying. There's too much information that's not being shared. This is a narrative that's being controlled.
But there was no thought about people didn't. Nancy, Trump, no, even the quote unquote peaceful protesters, because there were some of them, but it was these radical groups done under cover. So Nancy had no idea that this was going to happen.
Nancy knew everything, and Nancy deliberately refused
how could
to
she authorize know that a radical group that she's not a part of is going to come to the Capitol and smash
because everybody knew the mood of the country. Everybody knew people were mad over the controlled fake election.
No one knew that was going to happen.
No, everyone knew, including the CIA that covered up the Hunter Biden laptop. 51 security people signed off that it was fake when they knew it wasn't. This goes very deep, very deep.
So you think that it was set up by the Democrats to make Trump look bad?
Not just the Democrats, there's peoples on both sides. There is a deep state, and it involves the CIA, the FBI, the entire Justice Department.
Yeah,
why do you think they're all gone?
I'm interested in these radical groups because there are a lot out here in Arizona, and they operate very undercover and very secretively, and Trump sees them as his personal military, doesn't regulate them, even though they are inciting violence.
Are you aware of how many times our government's overthrown other countries? Nothing to do with Trump?
It's off subject.
No, it's not it's fact. Go back and look at history.
So can we stick to the subject, which is January 6th? So your take on it is it's a conspiracy.
What, January 6th? Yeah, totally.
What about criminals, using that word objectively, because they are criminals, right? They infiltrated the Capitol and were violent and had.
Did you see the video?
No. My question is Trump pardoning them okay with you?
He didn't pardon everyone, most of them, and they deserve to be pardoned because they were put in jail without even a trial. Some of them had cancer and were refused treatment. Some of them were taken out of their homes. All they were doing was standing there.
We have people that are breaking into the Capitol and threatening people's lives and bashing in heads, and they're getting pardoned.
Well, I want you to show me whose head they bashed in and who they killed. That is the narrative that was put out.
I would love to watch a documentary with you. And are you disappointed in my viewpoint?
No, I told you St. Patty's Day. We have to agree to disagree.
I mean, I can say that I'm disappointed in your viewpoint and the rest of the families, but I still love you guys. Like, you can be disappointed and also still care about someone.
Right. But I think if you had the knowledge we had, that you would have a different view.
I don't think so.
So if you saw video of the Capitol Police opening the doors and welcoming people and leading them to the Senate, that wouldn't faze you?
That was after they broke in, and they were already in the building.
Well, are you aware of the plants that were in the crowd, encouraging them to come in from the FBI, CIA, etc.? There were people in the crowds that they know. They even put a fake bomb that nobody just knew what happened to it.
No, and I think like we can definitely have. I would love to see your footage and send me links to things, because I want to know where you're getting this information. And
Wow.
that is the problem.
It
We
is.
are all consuming different information, and
that was the problem in general with the left, why they didn't want Trump to get in, because they knew he was going to expose all of it.
He hasn't. He's exposed himself, and so I'm trying to do exactly what is difficult to do, and explore both sides, and see if I change my mind.
Right. I'm not asking to change your mind. Like you said, we have to be respectful of each other's feelings.
So do you also believe he won the election, the 2020?
Yes. I
so
do.
You think
but
that was
I'm
a conspiracy too?
I'm glad that he didn't get in then, because I think it's so much more effective now.
If he made that all up, just hypothetically.
Made what up?
Made up winning, like made up this conspiracy that, like,
for 2020?
Yeah, just because he can't lose.
Right.
Do you think he still should have been able to run again?
I don't believe he made it up. I mean, that's a big if, because they had too much control over the computers. They had too much, in Philly alone, they had suitcases with like just feeding. They're feeding these ballots that were never even folded. They were just printed and feeding them into the machine.
I don't know if you watched his rally back in 24. It was like, so after October 13th, 2024, he's in Prescott Valley, and he's talking about the ballot counts, and this is where you say his humor comes up, and humor, there can be
sarcastic, I get it,
but truth to it, where he says, well, I'm not going to contest this election because I'm already up and that wouldn't benefit me. It's right. Just really telling.
And he jokes about a third presidency, and the idiots on the left go crazy. He knows he's not going to run a third time, but he says it just to antagonize people.
Yeah, he's very, but it's what the news media picks up too.
Yeah, that's what they thrive on.
Bad attention is attention. Flag next to the American flag flying in the air that said 2028 Trump. And I was like,
well, that's just somebody being ridiculous. I mean, I wouldn't do that. Yes, it is.
I mean, because it's like, it's almost this invigoration for Trump supporters, but it is devastation for the left, because it's like we can't even, like, the first 100 days have been so unbearable, like, to even think about the next 8 years. So
well, to me it was
psychological. A gift. And so my last question is, what's your outlook for the future of America over his term and beyond? And I actually just have one more question after that.
Well, I feel like he has an amazingly talented cabinet. So in that regard, I'm very hopeful. And as a Christian, I pray every day for him and for our country. And beyond that, there's nothing I can do.
I want to consume your information based on like this interview, and I want to show you some of my information.
Right.
because that's what's
That's
missing.
fair.
And what this podcast is about is how two different, radically different viewpoints are still able to come together, because that's what's missing in America. People are they don't know how to argue. They don't know how to respect other people.
Space.
And I know we've had difficulty over the years because we end up fighting.
And don't forget, the number one factor in that election was COVID. It was deliberately put out to interfere with this election, and that is a whole nother show.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're very, like, there's a lot of conspiracies out there, and a lot of information that is hard to really verify. So I'm trying to stick to facts here. Do you affiliate with anyone outside of your peer group? Do you have are they mostly Republicans? Are they mostly Trump supporters? Or do you have any family, friends that are?
All of my friends are Democrats. We just don't talk politics.
Here?
No, not here, but all my friends that I talk to regularly back east.
And you just don't bring up politics because
No.
they know.
I respect that they have their beliefs. They respect I have mine.
Have you tried in the past?
Yeah, I'll say a few things, and they're not informed. Like, I'm obsessed with it, so I obviously have more information, and I'm not gonna discount their feelings.
So they're more feelings based and less factual based, you would say. And so because they're surface, you're not able to really glean any good information that you could learn.
Right, because too many people will say, well, I don't watch the news, it's upsetting. And I respect that, because it is. And most people are just trying to survive. I look at it from a different aspect, because I've had many careers and I know how politics affects every aspect of life.
Have you always been obsessed with politics?
Since I was 14.
And do you think that's from being in like a Navy family, or you're not sure?
Partly, but partly because that was during the time of the transistor radio. So I was blessed to be a pen pal to a Vietnam veteran who sent me a little radio as a thank you. And I would just lay in bed at night, and the only thing I could pick up was late night talk radio.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I grew up with you listening to talk radio, and you still have the old school ones that have so much static. And I always wondered, like, so for you, it's like a personal memento. Would you agree that people can be wrong? Like,
absolutely,
I'm wrong sometimes. You're something.
Yes, absolutely.
What if, like, again, this is just hypothetical, everything you thought about Trump ended up being wrong, and he was this tyrant. He was a totalitarian. He only cared about himself. He was a sociopath. He was using the presidency to get richer, deporting innocent immigrants and Americans, increasing crime, increasing inflation, all these things. The question is, could you ever change your mind about him? If
I could change my mind about anybody, but what you just described was Joe Biden. Nobody got richer than Biden. Him, his son, his family.
What would convince you that he's unfit? Like, what would he have to do and it be verified for you?
I don't know. I don't even think it's worth talking about ifs, because he has been so talented and so gifted. He's never done anything to harm the country. He's only tried to help the country, and in particularly, like, the military. He's trying. I know people hate Doge, but I worked for the government for 10 years. I know how wasteful they are, and I don't want my tax dollars being wasted. I want it to go to good health care, Everybody, I don't care, rich or poor, deserves good health care. So I think that a strong military to protect our country. We're living in different times of nuclear war. It's a whole different.
The tax dollars are currently going to private contractors to help.
They always
ship
have.
out
They always
immigrants.
have.
That's where all of our
that's how
tax
they got
dollars are
shipped
going.
in. They got shipped in by private planes.
All right. Well, I think we're done, but I thank you so much, and I love you.
Thank you, my daughter. I love you.